because they are structurally and functionally different from each other. The neural hypothesis, the posterior lobe, you can see from this artist's rendition, it's the same color as the hypothalamus because it is the hypothalamus. It is an extension of the hypothalamus. It is neurological tissue. In fact, the neurons that release the hormones start in the hypothalamus and then release their hormones here in what I call the two-car garage of the hypothalamus, because there are two hormones that are released from the posterior. The anterior, notice it's a different color, and it's called adenohypophysis. This is endocrine tissue. It is not connected to the hypothalamus. It is not a part of the hypothalamus. It is its own endocrine organ. So the posterior pituitary is putting out two hormones, ADH and oxytocin. ADH, we've mentioned it a couple of times, and we'll talk about it in depth when we get to the kidney. But its job, when it's released, is to pull more water back out of the urine. So that would happen when osmolality goes up. Osmoreceptors in the hypothalamus shrink. Then the hypothalamus puts out ADH via the tissue of the posterior pituitary and causes the kidneys to put aquaporins into their tubules so they can pull more water back faster and make the urine more concentrated and more water in the blood. The other hormone is called oxytocin. Oxytocin has a few things. First of all, it causes smooth muscles to contract. So it's responsible for uterine contractions during labor. It's responsible for the milk letdown. And it is also the bonding hormone that floods the brain. So when baby goes to breast, mama's brain is flooded with oxytocin and she's looking down at that and she's just like bonded to it. When I hug my husband, this may be TMI, but I think of it every time. When I hug my husband, I should be timing it like a good scientist. Within just a short period of time, I get this, gosh, I love you. Even though I know it's oxytocin. I just read a study a few months ago that when you stare into the eyes of your dog, both of you are getting oxytocin release. And it bonds you to your dog and your dog to you. It's just like,
I don't know if I can make either one of my dogs concentrate on me long enough.
Oh, I grabbed them. Look at me. We need to bond. All right, now look at how it's released. Look, those are neurons out of the hypothalamus with their axon terminals are right there at the capillaries that are in the posterior pituitary. So notice it's actual hypothalamic neurons dumping their hormones directly into the blood. Now let's look at the anterior pituitary. The anterior pituitary is a different beast. It's made up of endocrine cells, most of which are going to produce growth hormone. But then we have different cells that are putting out different hormones that cause target organs to respond. Notice that, again, it's not neural tissue. Now let's look at it. All right, how is it controlled? It's controlled two ways. I'm kind of working my way through that lab handout, by the way, since you haven't turned it in yet. You know, you could be fine-tuning it while I talk. So notice that the hypothalamus keeps its neurons in the hypothalamus. It puts out its hormones into the capillary bed. That's what those green balls are. All right, those hormones travel via the blood, just like hormones. They travel via the blood. They travel via the capillary beds, and this is a portal system. If you remember that from anatomy, a portal system are capillary beds that are connected to each other. The normal pathway, most of the pathways are arterioles, capillary bed, venules, but in the case of a portal system, it's capillary to capillary. Then, the hormones that's released by the hypothalamus controls the pituitary gland, its anterior pituitary gland, just like every other endocrine organ. So hormones bond to the cells, and then that causes this endocrine organ to release its hormones. So notice, again, this is separate from the hypothalamus. It's being controlled just like every other endocrine gland. So that's why it's two. Oh, and I didn't, that second point, the anterior pituitary and the hypothalamus are controlled by the secretions of the target organs. So I don't remember what question that is about the anterior pituitary being called the master gland, but this name is misleading. You know, why is it and why is it misleading? Well, it is because the anterior pituitary is controlling an awful lot of functions. We're getting ready to talk about some of them and more of them on Thursday. But it's misleading because both the hypothalamus is controlling it and the target organs are controlling it. Okay, let's talk about those feedback loops. We'll have long and short feedback loops. So we'll have, and this one isn't even complete, we have feedback loops from the hypothalamus to the anterior pituitary. So the hypothalamus is checking to see did the anterior pituitary put out its hormones. That's a short feedback loop. Then we have long feedback loops from the target organs. Are the target organs putting out their hormones? This is detected by the anterior pituitary and by the hypothalamus. So there are multiple feedback loops, long and short. Now the anterior pituitary puts out 6 hormones that are trophic in nature. Trophic means they control the size of the target organ. The higher the level, the bigger the target organ. All right, the idea here is, all right, the target organ's not putting out enough of its hormone. So the anterior pituitary is like, all right, then I'll just make that organ bigger. There'll be more cells. More cells mean more hormone. We take, for example, not to steal her thunder, but let's take, for example, the goiter of hypothyroidism. So the thyroid is supposed to put out thyroid hormone. If it doesn't, the anterior pituitary puts out more thyroid stimulating hormone, which makes the thyroid gland get bigger. It's almost like the anterior pituitary is thinking, okay, if I make it bigger, it'll put out more, right? That'll be the thinking. So I'm going to make it bigger. By the same token, if there's a lot of hormone coming out of the target organ, then the anterior pituitary backs off. So it doesn't put out as much of its hormone and the organ shrinks. So an example of that, here, the bodybuilder who takes anabolic steroids. The steroids mimic testosterone. Okay, what's going to happen to the size of his testicles? They will shrink. All right, let's look at one. The feedback is strong on the anterior pituitary. The anterior pituitary thinks, whoa, way too much testosterone. So it puts out less of its hormones, and these hormones control the size of the testicles. And so the testes will get smaller as a response, which I find ironic. Bodybuilder, big He-Man. All right, from your book, but I like this one better. I got it from another book. I like it because it's got the whole thing together. All right, here's the hypothalamus, and these are kind of pinky in color. The hypothalamus puts out gonadotropin releasing hormone, growth hormone releasing hormone, corticotropin releasing hormone, thyrotropin releasing hormone, prolactin releasing hormone. So if there were a question on test 5, let's say, which organ releases this hormone? And the hormone is called a releasing hormone. Which organ? Hypothalamus. Okay, don't forget that. It may or may not. It will be. On the test coming. All right, now we look at the 6 hormones put out the anterior pituitary. Luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulating hormone, growth hormone, adrenocorticotropic hormone, thyroid stimulating hormone, and prolactin. Then notice that 5 of these are now going to affect another level of endocrine organs. The endocrine cells of the gonads, both ovaries and testes, the liver, the adrenal cortex, and the thyroid gland. Then they put out hormones which affect target tissues. This is what makes test 5 hard, because you've got a lot of hormones coming from a lot of different organs. There's some differences in the way some of these negative feedback loops look, and then there will be multiple effects with these multiple target tissues. And from your book, here are the hormones that are caused from the hypothalamus, that are the releasing hormones. And then here are the pituitary hormones. All right, Thursday, we'll pick up these 3, but today we're going to cover these 3. which are a part now of chapter 20. All right, the hypothalamus is going to put out gonadotropin-releasing hormone, GnRH. This will cause the anterior pituitary to put out luteinizing hormone, LH, and follicle-stimulating hormone, FSH. It affects both genders. The idea is to get either sperm or eggs, to get either testosterone or estrogen, and to keep the testes and the ovaries the right size. So there's a simple feedback loop. All right, let's start from the beginning. I know it's a little early to look at genitalia. All right, here we are in the womb. Notice that until 6 weeks of gestation, baby looks like a girl. But at 6 weeks of gestation, if it's a baby boy's testes starts putting out testosterone. So there we have the beginning of the testosterone. And over the next month, the clitoris will enlarge to become the penis. The labia majora will become the scrotal sac. The labia minora become the urethral and tube, along with the ability to pass out sperm. So this will seal up to form the tube. And so then by the time baby's born, most of the time it's a boy, it's a girl. But we already can see some issues. Let's say that baby does not have receptors for testosterone. Then baby will be born with an enlarged clitoris. Is it a girl? Is it a boy? If mother comes in contact with anything that blocks testosterone, then baby will be born with an enlarged clitoris. Don't know if it's a boy or it's a girl. There's a drug that treats male pattern baldness called Propecia. A few years ago, I was listening to the commercial. I always like to listen to what the narrator's saying. You know, you have all these happy people doing happy things in the sunshine, but then you need to listen to what the narrator is saying. May include coma and death. The narrator was saying a pregnant woman cannot even touch these pills, must not handle the pills, must not touch fragments of the pills, cannot come in contact with the pills at all. And of course I had to look that up. Why? Well, if she's carrying a boy baby, Propecia blocks one of the precursors for testosterone. Therefore, gentlemen, your hair don't fall out. Testosterone is the influence that, if you have the genetics for it, causes male pattern baldness. So if we block testosterone in the hair follicles, then your hair doesn't fall out. But if we block testosterone and the woman's pregnant with a boy, this urethral tube will not close, and baby will be born with something called hypospadias, where the opening to the penis is underneath the penis rather than at the end. And it may even have a curved penis, which could be surgically fixed too. They would have to do surgery to fix that.
I was a pharmacy technician when I was pregnant with my first baby.
Yes.
And I had to wear gloves when I did Propecia and Flomax. Those are the two I couldn't touch.
Because if it's a boy, then it's gonna be a problem.
She was a girl.
It's the same thing like RA, like my mom has RA and my sister's pregnant. So like they told my mom she can't touch RA medicine. It has methotrexate, I think.
Methotrexate, yeah.
Pregnant people can't even go near it.
Yeah, because it stops growth of rapid growing cells, which in your mother's case is all about autoimmune condition. We're trying to stop the lymphatic or the immune system from continuing to destroy joints. But in the case of baby, then baby wouldn't grow.